Thank you so much. I think it's a great honor and privilege for me to come here and speak a few words about Nepal. Nepal, although a very small country, but in terms of ecology and topography, I think we are very unique in the sense that the width of Nepal is on an average about 100 kilometers, but within that 100 kilometers, we have the elevation of 67 meters in the southern part of Nepal. Very tropical climate, but it goes up to 8,848 meters in Mount Everest. So within a span of 100 kilometers, meaning that the gradient is very high in Nepal in that perspective. So when the gradient is very high, it's a small strip and we have all kinds of climatic conditions, then definitely I think we are rich in biodiversity, no doubt about that. So if we talk about the biodiversity in Nepal, we have more than 10,633 plants and more than 3,000 wildlife species in the country. If we talk about the share of forest in Nepal, although there is some problem now because of the climate change, and not only the climate change, people would like to go to the urban areas and urban centers. They don't want to stay in the hilly regions. For the reason of livelihood and employment opportunities and things like that. So having said that, our forest area is about 41%. This is the total share of forest in the total land. But if we count the wooded land included, then probably it's about 45%. So Nepal is committed to have 45% of the total land as a forest area, and that's a densely forest area by 2030. So now it's about 40. Now we would like to increase to 45%. So that's one good thing. The other area is, which is of many major concern to many people, the carbon dioxide emission in Nepal is, if we see the list, it's very, very small. I think. But we are affected by the carbon dioxide emission, carbon emission of mostly the developed countries. No doubt, I think densely populated areas also have similar kind of problem, and energy consumption is rising like anything in most of the countries. But our carbon dioxide emission, mainly because of small towns and limited number of cities, probably it's only 0.04%, which is negligible compared to most of the developed countries. So, but it is affecting the carbon emission in all over the world, globally, is affecting our Himalayas. I think the snows are melting. I think there are a number of glaciers that are being melted, and now we have the glacier lakes. We never heard of that, let's say, 50, 60 years ago, but now we have so many glacier lakes. So when you have the glacier lakes and rural population around that area, then it can burst anytime and can have the impact to the rural population, and it can have a disaster in the country. So 80% of the property that is damaged in the country each year by disaster, I think scientists have given attributed to the climate change in the country, meaning that it has a big impact in Nepal, especially not only in the Himalayan region, but also the livelihood and as well as probably agriculture and tourism industry in the future. So having said that, I think we also have one advantage. That advantage is that our electricity generation is all renewable, because we have so much of capacity. Theoretical capacity is about more than 80,000 megawatt. So even if we can produce 20,000 megawatt and can sell to Nepal, can sell to India, it can have enormous benefit to both the countries. As for example, we can increase our revenue, we can reduce the trade deficit with number of countries, but in the meantime, India also can benefit in a number of ways. So in terms of investment cost, the generation cost, the India will save. As for example, if we export 20,000 megawatt from Nepal, India can save up to 160 billion US dollar in terms of the generation cost, investment in the generation. So similarly, I guess carbon dioxide emission. So the World Bank has done a calculation, and it says that if Nepal can export 20,000 megawatt of renewable energy to India, so India can reduce about 2.3 billion metric ton of carbon dioxide emission. So Nepal is trying to see how we can cooperate in all the areas, not only in the electricity but also in the environmental areas. So the cooperation between Nepal and India, especially in the areas of carbon dioxide emission, forestry, national park reservation, because we have about 24% of our land under the protection and national protected areas. So I think we can learn so many things. We can have, because I think all the Himalayan region rivers, they flow to, from Nepal, they flow to India. So I think we can have so much of cooperation in the area of water resources, electricity trading, electricity generation, and Nepal, India very recently have also signed an agreement to develop hydroelectricity in Nepal jointly and promote the hydroelectricity and export to India. So I think that's the way forward, and then we definitely need cooperation, and it's a win-win situation for most of the developing countries, especially South Asia and Nepal, India. Thank you so much.
Okay. If there are some questions, then we can take a very few questions if someone like to ask. Yeah, hands are being raised. One last question before we move to the audience. I mean, the problem that you talked about and the kind of opportunity that both India and Nepal can come together, well, in terms to cope the challenges posed by this climate change. Do you think that this area can also be worked out, and the both the nation are probably working in that direction? And what is your message in that way?
I think if we see the commitment made by India and Nepal, whether that's in the Paris Agreement or very recently in the Scotland, I think they are of similar nature. So, but we also have to work hard, because Nepal has already developed the National Action Plan to achieve what we have agreed in the Paris Agreement and Scotland. So I'm sure India has similar kind of thing. I think reduction of greenhouse emissions by 30 to 35% by the year 2030, and similar kind of thing. So I think there is a lot of scope. As for example, just to give you one example, if India can produce lots of electric car, then we can benefit in Nepal, because we have plenty of hydroelectricity, and then we can use and we can replace this petroleum, gasoline fuel to a large extent, and can use the hydroelectricity for our vehicles. So that's the reason, that's how I think we can develop. And the national parks are in the border area. I think many tigers that stay in Nepal for some months, they go to India. And similarly, I think the Indian tigers and elephants, they go to Nepal once in a while. So there are lots of opportunity, whether we talk about the protected areas, new technology, and also the international forum. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, there are two hands I've been. Yeah, lady over there. Your name, and then please ask the question.
Is it on?
It's not on, I think. Yeah, mic. Yeah, I think it's on now. Up on it. Yeah, push.
Yeah. Good evening. My name is Kavita Ashok, and I'm an environmentalist, so Delhi-based. So I have one question for you that, plastic ban is supposedly coming up in India very soon. So what do you have to say about Nepal? And how do you think your beautiful country would contribute to the global eradication of this menace that we call plastic pollution? This is my question to you.
Thank you. I think it's a great question. Nepal government, I think about 15 years ago, they started with banning the very thin type of plastics, which is not easily degradable. But the problem is that I think being a least developed country, it's so difficult to do the enforcement. And frankly speaking, I guess it's not only in Nepal, in most of the countries, people care about, because by training I'm an economist, they only talk about money and the immediate gain. So the government has to come up, but the politics of vote probably will prevent many things in the area of regulation, environmental regulation and enforcement. But having said that, I think if you go to the departmental store in Kathmandu now, they don't use plastic at all. So meaning, first of all, being a small country and small cities and towns, the amount of non-degradable waste is small. But having said that, it's rising very fast. But most of the departmental store, I think just like here, either we have to have our own bag, or they will give us a degradable bag with a cost of 10 rupees, 15 rupees. Efforts have been done, but I think more needs to be done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is a, yes, Sachin over there. Yeah, okay.
नमस्ते, मेरा नाम सचिन बुधोलिया है, मैं यूनिवार्ता में स्पेशल करस्पॉन्डेंट हूँ। मेरा सवाल ये है कि हमारे यहाँ रेन्यूएबल एनर्जी के ऊपर हम लोग जिस तरह से फोकस कर रहे हैं, ख़ासतौर पर नेपाल में सोलर पर और विंड पावर पर एक काफ़ी वहाँ पर संभावनाएं हैं, तो उस दिशा में नेपाल क्या काम कर रहा है? दूसरा मेरा एक रिलेटेड सवाल है कि मानसून आने वाला है, नेपाल की नदियों से जो पानी जाता है उससे बिहार या कुछ एरिया में बाढ़ बहुत आती है, तो उस दिशा में नेपाल इंडिया के साथ किस तरह से कोऑपरेट कर रहा है, हम लोग किस तरह से उसको मैनेज किया जाए? Thank you.
Yeah, I think I think I'll probably start from the last question. Yeah, I think there are about 6,000 rivers. They come from Nepal to India. But if we see the Nepal's perspective, I think I have a map. I didn't bring it today. So there are about 18 places where, starting from monsoon, meaning the next month, every day if you see in the newspaper, there is one or another type of news of flood and inundation in the Nepali part. But Nepal and Indian government, I think you are right. Even in India, you have problem because of those things. It can be done. It has been done in some places, but the speed by which we need to do these kind of issues, address these issues of embankment, flood and inundation issues, giving compensation to the people and resettlement, I think it can be done, but we need to expedite that one. I think both countries suffer, but if you see Nepali newspaper, probably you'll see so many, news about the southern part of Nepal being flooded and inundated. So same here in Bihar and UP. So there is no option but to work together, and Nepal and India, they have a number of committees, but my urge is that they need to be expedited, that's all. Yeah.
Yeah, Sajna ji.
नमस्कार, मेरा नाम सर्जना शर्मा।
The first part of the question, the renewable energy, what Nepal can do to further accelerate solar and wind energy.
Yeah, I think in the solar, we have very recently started, I think, a big project with the help of the World Bank and even the private sector. But our focus is more on hydropower because the land availability in Nepal is also limited. Because if you go to the hilly areas, probably there may not be enough sun for the solar power. The southern part of Nepal, I think, is the density is already high. So very difficult to have solar power development in Nepal. But nevertheless, I think we are trying about 50 megawatt of that with the help of the private sector. Wind power, yes and no. Probably there is not much of incentive because of the development of hydropower in the country, but we have tried a couple of those in the northern part, Himalayan region, like Mustang, Manang areas. We'll continue doing that, but we don't have the technology. We have to borrow it either from the European countries or from some other countries. So we are trying that. Thank you.
नमस्कार, मेरा नाम सर्जना शर्मा है। मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहती हूँ कि नेपाल इको टूरिज्म के लिए क्या कर रहा है एज़ कम्पेयर टू भूटान। मैंने देखा नेपाल में जो रूल्स हैं वो बहुत सख्त नहीं है, लेकिन अगर आप भूटान जाते हैं तो आप वहाँ बोन फायर नहीं कर सकते, और टूरिस्ट के लिए वो कहते हैं कि हमको रक सैकर्स नहीं चाहिए, बहुत सीरियस टूरिस्ट चाहिए, तो वो उनकी फ़ीस ज़्यादा है। वहाँ बिल्डिंग नॉर्म्स बहुत सख्त हैं कि 4 मंजिल से ज़्यादा आप नहीं बना सकते और हिमालयन आर्किटेक्चर होगा। लेकिन नेपाल में कई बार गई हूँ, वहाँ उस तरह के रूल्स नहीं लगते। तो आप अपनी इतनी सुंदर प्यारी सी कंट्री को बचाने के लिए आपका क्या फ्यूचर प्लान्स हैं?
There is a dilemma because I used to be the vice chairman of the National Planning Commission, and then I initiated a road from Manang area, which is very pristine area, no doubt about that. The problem with the people in Manang and Mustang, very pristine areas of Nepal, what they say all the time is that, do we give preference to the tourists or to us? Because the price is so high in these areas, because if there is no motorable road, there is no road, then everything becomes so expensive. So either it has to be highly subsidized by the government, but even then, I think they would like to have the roads, because if you don't have the roads, you don't see the doctors and health workers, you don't see the teachers there. So this is a kind of dilemma, but Nepal is trying to develop alternative tourism and trekking routes, basically, that's one, because it's not, I think, wise to stop building roads even in those remote areas. So trying to develop some alternative trekking routes. The second is, you are right, I think about 40% of the tourists that go to Nepal, they want to see the nature, plus adventurous tourism, trekking, mountaineering, these kind of things. We have become a little bit revenue oriented, no doubt about that. But having said that, I think on those areas, mountaineering areas, Nepal Army and other people, civilian society, government of Nepal, they jointly do the cleaning exercise. And at that time, we'll know that how much waste they are, I think, disposing over there. Although I think the people who go to those places are European Americans. So yes, I think probably we need to do more regulation and strong enforcement. It's gradually coming, but there is a dilemma whether we'd like to still continue with the mass tourism or high-end tourism. I think this is always a very dilemma. But because if we see the connection with the GDP, calculating the indirect impact of the tourism in Nepal, it's about 8 to 9%. So people don't want to give easily that kind of income, and then so there is always two schools of thoughts. But good suggestions. Thank you.
एक सवाल मैं और उसके बाद एक सवाल लूंगा। एक सवाल जो मन में आता है वो ये है कि हर देश पर इकोनॉमिक क्लाइमेट के जो कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस हैं उसके इम्पैक्ट की कॉस्ट आती जाती है। इंडिया में भी कहा जाता है कि अप्रॉक्सीमेटली जो डिजास्टर आते हैं जो क्लाइमेट चेंज के पार वो 3% ऑफ द जीडीपी हो गया है। नेपाल भी उसका कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस झेल रहा होगा। यूरोपियन यूनियन और जो ताकतवर देश हैं वो अब एक टैरिफ भी लगाने की बात करते हैं कि अगर वो एक कार्बन लीकेजेस होगा तो उसकी एक टैरिफ लगाएंगे। तो कॉन्सिक्वेंटली और इवेंचुअली वो हमारे ऊपर ही आएगा, नेपाल के ऊपर आएगा। क्या नेपाल जैसा देश उसके लिए तैयार है? और अगर जो टारगेट दिए जाते हैं, जैसे कि इंडिया के प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने कहा कि हम 2070 तक जीरो एमिशन पर जाएंगे, ऐसे टारगेट क्या अचीवेबल हैं आपके देश के लिए?
I think we have also committed, as for example, Nepal also declared to decarbonize its economy and aims to reach a net zero emission by 2045 and maintain 45% of our total land as a forest area. Yes, but in the meantime, I think we need cooperation from all the countries. The reason is that I think developing countries, they are not the culprits for high level of carbon emission. So I think it was there, it was history, but we have to work together, no doubt about that, but it has to have some kind of amicable solution for a period of time. Thank you.
जी.
Thank you. My name
Sir,
is Sridhar.
I'm Colonel Harish Rana. I am with Ministry of Defense. I come from Uttarakhand and I have a love for Nepal because we border Nepal and my wife is from Arunachal and she speaks good Nepali. Now coming to the problem which the world is facing and which जो आपने यहाँ पे you elucidated, this is about non-recyclable plastic waste, single-use plastic waste. Does the Nepal government support something known as EPR, that is Extended Producer's Responsibility, one. And secondly, a statement subsequent to this which I am giving is, very recently, one of the top nuclear reactor fabricators of the world, she is Mrs. Babita Gupta ji, Chief Engineer with Nuclear Power Corporation of India. She, along with her siblings, she has been able to make a continuous, non-catalytic, mixed waste tolerating, non-recyclable plastic technology which is scalable. So this technology addresses the problem of non-recyclable plastic which goes into landfills and which goes into oceans. So is the government aware of this kind of thing?
Okay. I think the second suggestion, I'll say, that's the suggestion. I'm also not an expert on all these kind of technology, but definitely I think if we have something of that sort, Nepal government has always announced that it will provide some subsidy in those areas. Because without subsidies and without some support from the government, maybe that's not marketable, that's not cost effective. So I think we can look into it, no doubt about that, because there is so much interest in this area. So not only about the government, I think if we see the youth in Nepal, the girls and boys, I think they are running campaigns in the country. So meaning that it will have a major implication. The first one, I think the technology, I'm not aware of that one. So I cannot say much about that one. So definitely I think it will be useful. Thank you. Thank you so much.
On this note, we have to wrap up this session. Thank you very much, His Excellency, Mr. Sharma, to come here and express your views here. It's indeed to have you in the show. Thank you very much.